Welcome to the Academy for Teachers Masterclass on AI Explained with Larry Carin. I'm Sarani Muller. I've been teaching since 2002. And I will say the best part of teaching for me is all those impacts I never knew I had. Actually, just this morning, I spoke to one of my former students because 4 years ago, I received a call from his therapist. He was going through a rough patch. She said, is there someone who made an impact on you that you'd like to get in touch with and let them know how you are? And he mentioned me, and that was probably a good 12 years after he had left my care, as it were. So that's always nice, and you never know who you're going to make an impression on. I am a proud fellow of the Academy for Teachers. I just feel like it treats me as a professional. It inspires me to inject new concepts and share things with others, because it's really easy to get lost in that day-to-day stuff and not see all the cool things that are out there that we can bring back into the classroom. And I have the honor today of introducing Lawrence Carin. He is the newly appointed provost at the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in Saudi Arabia. He researches machine learning, artificial intelligence, applied statistics, and I'm really excited to be part of this class because I really think AI is fascinating, how it works, how it's trained, its ramifications, and I would really love to make AI like a bigger part of my discussions with my students. So about the Academy, I think a teacher in the Academy is someone who's passionate, not just about the work we do, but about learning for ourselves, because that's what inspires us and educates us and keeps us excited to go back to the classroom. It is my honor today to introduce all of you who are selected from the many applicants. We are an impressive group, I have to say. We have advanced degrees in education, theology, law, speech language pathology. We all teach grades K through 12 in public schools, charter schools, and independent schools, with some super interesting subjects like conceptual physics, music production, and we have myriad extracurriculars that we coach or advise, which range from handcrafts to robotics to squash. And there's a lot of experience in teaching here as well. We've been in the classroom anywhere from 2 to 26 years. The total number of years we've been teaching is 222, and I know I feel that old some days. We teach between 30 and 200 kids, and the number of children who know our names is 1,719, and that's just this year. And my students always ask me, how many kids do you have, Miss? And I say, well, I have thousands. And then I said, because every one of you is my kid, even those ones who make me feel 222. So your real audience today, Professor Carin, are those 1,719 kids, because every kid here in some way will have us share with them what we learned from you, and the ripple effect of everything we learn in these master classes is huge. So thank you, Professor Carin, for taking time out and being here, to my fellow teachers for teaching. And with that, we'll let the master class begin. Larry, they're all yours.
Okay, thank you so much. So first of all, I just want to say that the honor is mine, to be here. You all make such a big impact in so many young people's lives. At a university, by the time we get them, they're 18, 19 years old. They're fairly well developed, and they are who they are. And our job is not to screw them up. In a university, we hope to do a little better than that. But once we get them, they are developed, and it's you who are making that happen. So I just want to say that I applaud all of you. And again, it's my honor to be here. Just briefly about me. So King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. I doubt you've heard of that, but it's called KAUST. In the last, the S&T is science and technology. In that world, KAUST is actually well known. But before, and I've been at KAUST for 1 week. For 26 years, I was a professor at Duke University. I would imagine you've heard of Duke. I work in AI. But perhaps you might find interesting is that my PhD was not in AI. And so actually what I really do is I engage in lifelong learning. I taught myself AI. I never took a single class in statistics or machine learning or anything. I learned it myself just because I thought it was interesting and I wanted to learn about it. And the other thing about that is that it is accessible. It is more accessible to a wide audience than is widely appreciated. And I have worked very hard at trying to communicate what AI is to a very broad audience. If you watch the homework assignment, which was a video we did that with the American Medical Association. And so in that work, we were talking to medical doctors. And so the challenge we had was to try to communicate what AI is to medical doctors. And these are smart people, but they're not trained in AI. And we need to, so therefore we cannot use jargon. We have to draw on intuition, et cetera. And I hope that was accomplished. In other words, I hope you got a sense of what AI is. But so let's dive in now. I'm going to show some slides in a second. I assume I'll be able to project my screen in a moment. But I just want to say, as probably all of us, I do claim some expertise in Zoom today. If you have any questions throughout, just put them in chat and or I'm not sure how this is exactly set up. Either put them in chat, or if it has it, put it in questions, and then I will read them. I'll read your chats or your questions as I go. And if I think that it's appropriate to answer it in real time, I will. If I know I'm going to say something later that will answer your question, I'll answer it later. But it generally, as you probably have found yourself, it's probably best not to disrupt. We can, at the end, I'm happy to engage in conversation, but just put it in chat. Okay, so hopefully you watched the video, and so a question that you might be asking, question that I've thought a lot about is, given the fact that AI is a field that arguably started in 1960, the technology that is revolutionizing the world right now, or at least potentially making an impact in the world in AI, dates to 1959. So it's actually not that new, really. A lot of these ideas have been around for a long time. So why are you here? Like, why is the subject of AI something that would draw you to listen to me? And why is the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and the New Yorker and all these magazines, why are they writing about AI now? Given the fact that, actually you could trace it back to the 1950s. So today, some things are going on that are really, I would say, almost unbelievable. And I'm going to show you some examples of that in a moment. Now, let's think about the homework assignment a little bit. So the homework assignment was, the subject of the homework was the capacity of AI or machine learning to do diagnosis in medicine, and in that example, it's for diabetic retinopathy, right? And so the objective was, could a machine diagnose diabetic retinopathy as well or better than a clinician? And the answer is yes, it can, which is pretty amazing. And diabetic retinopathy, maybe is a comorbidity of diabetes. If it is caught early, it is curable. If it's not caught early, it leads to blindness. So this is quite a stark, you're fine or you're blind, okay? That's pretty stark. And if you catch it early, so as was said in the video, it's not that doctors can't diagnose diabetic retinopathy. The problem is that people don't go into the doctor enough. And so, as was said in the video, well, why not put machines in a drugstore, and all you do is just look into the machine, 5 seconds, the machine says you're fine, or you should go see a doctor. It's not that a doctor couldn't do that, but a doctor is not going to sit in the drugstore and do that. So that's pretty remarkable. But let's think about that. And by the way, that's coming to your drugstore. Within the next 5 years, it will be in your drugstore, and probably much sooner than 5 years. So that's pretty amazing, and that's going to save the sight of a lot of people. Not to mention that story is true in the United States, but in other parts of the world, they don't have doctors. And so the capacity of this technology to impact human lives is pretty amazing. But still, that's not quite as impressive to me than what I'm going to try to talk to you about today. If you think about the diabetic retinopathy, what you're basically doing is you're teaching a machine to look at images and determine, does that look like diabetic retinopathy or not? Which is pretty impressive, but the machine doesn't have the capacity to imagine. It doesn't have the capacity to, for example, draw an eye with diabetic retinopathy or draw a healthy eye. Think about that for a second. We're teaching a machine to diagnose diabetic retinopathy and actually to distinguish a healthy eye from a non-healthy eye. But if you say to the machine, draw a picture of a healthy eye, can't do it because it was never trained to do that. Now, if you ask a doctor to do that, they could do it. It may not be a very good drawing, but they could draw. Depends on their artistic skills. So the thing is that the capacity of that AI in that video is impressive, but highly limited. It has a very rigid, brittle set of skills. You give it an image and it says diabetic retinopathy or not. But if you ask it, draw a picture of a healthy eye, can't do it. The question is in chat, can AI draw a healthy eye? Yes. Not what we talked about in the video, but that's what we're going to talk about now. So this is a significant, what I'm going to talk about now is really the frontier. And I find this remarkable. By the way, please, Academy, maybe give me some time checks. I have 30 minutes, 15, whatever, just because I'm not going to be able to keep track of the time. So the two areas of AI that are drawing the most attention and the most excitement and have the potential largest impact on humanity is in image analysis and in language. Now, you think about it, to human beings, what makes humans humans? First of all, language is critical, right? No other animal can communicate and can write. Maybe they can communicate, but write the way humans do. So that's an incredibly human thing. And then also the capacity to draw pictures, which is another way of communicating, another way of writing. So can AI do that? So this is an article. Let's see if this works. All right, it should hopefully work here. Okay. This is an article that was published in the New Yorker article. Okay, good. Hopefully will work. And it asked a question: can an AI engine, an AI machine, write an article? And even more challenging than that, can an AI engine write a New Yorker can it write an article that is of the quality of a New Yorker article, right? So I did get to meet a few of you, and I recognize quite a few people from New York. And of course, the New Yorker is a global magazine. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the New Yorker. The reason to me that, asking this question, can AI write as well as the New Yorker? The New Yorker is arguably the finest, most sophisticated, English periodical in the world. That's no small task to write like the New Yorker. In fact, most people cannot write like the New Yorker. So this article, which was published in October of 2019, asked the question: can an AI machine write an article as well as the New Yorker? So did anybody, for this one, people just shout out, did anybody read this article? I highly recommend it. So there's an algorithm, it's called GPT-2, crazy name, GPT-2. And it is an AI engine that can write. And so this author, John Seabrook, asked the question: can this algorithm write as well as me for the New Yorker, right? That's what this article is about. And so he was stunned by how far this technology has come. And I'm going to show you this in a second. The answer is, can an AI machine write like the New Yorker or write an article for the New Yorker? The answer is no, but it is stunningly close, really close. So this author, he tells the story that he uses this tool. He's using the tool in the GPT-2 and on his phone, and he gets an email from his son, the author, and his son, who is in college or something, tells his dad, the author, about his latest exploit. And so now the dad, the author, is going to write an email back to his son. And so he starts to compose, he's writing to his son, dear son, I am very, and then he types P. And the author was, in his mind, when he was writing, he was going to write, I am very pleased that things are going well for you, son, right? But then the AI engine, so, I am very P, and then the AI engine said, I am very proud of you, son. So instead of saying pleased, the AI engine said, I am very proud. I'm very proud of you, son. And so then the author of the article, the father, he paused and he thought, wait a second, I don't tell my son I'm proud of him enough. And he actually then used what the AI engine, said. And so that was actually a very startling thing. Now, so then the question is, how well can an AI engine write a New Yorker article? And so now what I'm going to show you here is the text that you see here was written by the author. And yet, sitting there at the keyboard, I could feel the uncanny valley prickling my neck. It wasn't that the smart compose, which was the machine, had guessed correctly where my thoughts were headed. In fact, it had not. The creepy thing was the machine was more thoughtful than I was. That's what he, now that text that you just, that he wrote that. Now, what I'm going to show you now is what the AI continues. So now you have writer's block. You don't know what to say. And now the AI writes. So this is now produced by AI. By that, I mean, it seemed to want to distinguish my feelings from my thoughts. To put it another way, Smart Compose seemed to want to know me. So first of all, look at that sentence. First of all, it's spot on. In other words, it's on topic. It's idiomatically perfect. It is arguably indistinguishable from something that a human would have wrote. And it was completely synthesized by a machine. So continuing, again, now this is all written by the author, and we'll come down here. This is, I'll show you this, and then we'll go, we'll go into my talk. Okay, so then the author further down the road says, that sounded something like my Rubicon moment with my son. What part of I am proud of you was human, intimate father-son stuff, and what part of it was machine-generated text? It will become harder and harder to tell the difference. That was produced by the author. This is produced by the machine. The machine is now taking over the writing. So notice that it's not just predicting the next word, it's producing two paragraphs, two sophisticated paragraphs, and two paragraphs that are spot on, on topic, idiomatically perfect, of quality, at least good enough to be in the New Yorker, I would say, all produced by a machine. So this is very different from asking a machine to analyze text and to determine, is the text characteristic of somebody with depression or not with depression, which is analogous to the diabetic retinopathy. It's not just analyzing it; it's producing questions. It's producing questions. It's producing text all by itself. To me, this is stunning. The capacity of a machine to do this is absolutely stunning. And then with regard to the question from Sam, this text is utterly, completely original. It was not in any, it's produced by the machine, right? Okay, so text is pretty impressive. How about images? So now, this is an article that was published in the New York Times. And now we're not going to ask a machine to distinguish male faces from female faces or diabetic retinopathy from not diabetic retinopathy. Because think about that. What that means is machine, look at the image and say yes, no. As impressive as that is, it's not that hard. There's only two answers. You have diabetic retinopathy or you don't have diabetic retinopathy. It's still pretty impressive. But draw a picture of an eye with diabetic retinopathy. That's another story, right? So can a machine draw a picture? And can a machine draw a picture with a fidelity that is sufficient to be as if produced by a camera, but actually is completely fake? This picture that you're looking at here is fake. It was produced by a machine. That is not a real picture. That is a drawing. That is a work of art, if you will. All right, let's see if this works. Okay, so let me just scroll down. So now notice that this person is changing slowly from this person to this person, ultimately to a man. Every one of those pictures is fake, produced by a machine. So now, if you look at these pictures, first of all, to me, they are photographic quality. They are incredibly real. They are incredibly fake. And so, what can you do with this technology? Every one of the images that you see here is produced by a machine. These are not real people. So this has the potential to do a lot of good. It has the potential to do a lot of harm. Every image as you look at these is fake, is synthetic. So, it used to be that, a picture was worth 1,000 words. I guess that's still true. But it used to be that a photograph would be used, for example, in a court of law to, guarantee fact, that we can no longer trust that. Let me show you a little bit more, but every image that you see here is produced by a machine. The quality of these images, in my view, is absolutely stunning. All right, now, let me show you some of the things that you can do with this technology. So this was published in the New York Times in November. All right, I want to show you one more thing. Keep going. Okay, so let me just show you one more thing on this, and then we'll go into the lecture. Okay, so now what can you do with AI? So you have a young child, that's your son, and you want to imagine what your son might look like as they age. All of those images are fake, synthetic, produced by a machine. We can take this photograph. We can make this woman happy. We can make her sad. So imagine the good and bad that can be done with this. Sorry. So now AI is not just asking a question, is this a male or a female? Is this a young person or an old person? Is this a diabetic retinopathy, an eye, or a healthy eye? Those are binary questions. Those are pretty impressive, but not nearly as impressive as actually drawing an image. Now AI can do this, and this is what this is what AI can do today. So now what I want to do is to try to give you a sense of how this works. Now, this is actually very sophisticated technology, so I can't, of course, like teach you the whole thing. But I do want to try to give you a sense of how this works. So before I go forward, are there any questions that anybody has about this at this point? All right, so the video that you looked at for your homework assignment concerned images. What I'm going to do is talk about language. I would say that what I showed you with regard to the New Yorker is pretty impressive. And so the question is, how does that work? How can you teach a machine to use to generate language of that quality? So the thing I want you to kind of ponder is, an image is a set of numbers. So if you look at an image, like a digital image that you produce on your camera, the image is composed of pixels. And each of those pixels has a red, green, blue component. And then what we do is at every pixel value, we have the strength of the red, the green, the blue. So therefore, if you have an image, you can, and in fact, a computer represents an image as a set of pixels. Each pixel is characterized by numbers which quantify how much red, how much green, how much blue at every pixel value. So an image naturally is a set of numbers. And computers or machine learning or AI, it likes working with numbers. So at least, as challenging as images are, at least they're numbers. So now what I want you to do is think about language. Language is letters, it's words. There are no numbers. So how in the heck can a machine analyze and produce language? Because language is not even numbers, and numbers are how computers think. So the first challenge we have with natural language processing is we have to convert language into numbers. So, okay, so I have 30 minutes. I'm going to try to answer that question. Okay, so just with regard to my slides, these are slides that I put together and I've used to talk to many audiences in the past. They have always been used while I was at Duke University, and I'm going to continue to use those slides even though I'm now at KAUST. So in any case, so I'm with KAUST, but I was with Duke 8 days ago. I was with Duke. So I'll keep that. So, if we think about language, we want to take words in, and we want to say the sentiment is good or bad, for example. That's a hard problem because the language is not numbers. And so the first thing we need to think about is how can we turn language into numbers? And some of the things, just to give you a sense of some of the some of the things we want to do with this technology. So we'd like to be able to tell sentiment. You at your schools, you have a lot of students. Your students might send you emails to tell you how it's going. You could read every single email, and perhaps you do that. But maybe it would be good to use a machine to bucket the messages that are positive sentiment and negative sentiment, and perhaps you would focus on the negative sentiment to try to understand, right? So that's an area where AI is widely used. Another one, which is as well, one of the big areas where AI has made big progress in natural language processing is in translation. Google Translate, for example, is incredibly impressive. So here, this is English to German. The quality of this is very good.
Larry, sorry, yeah. Larry, we're not seeing your slides. We're seeing the New York Times article.
Ooh. All right, okay. That is not good. Sorry about that, guys. Let me do that again. Thank you for letting me know. All right, this should work. All right, you see it now though, right? See that, you see, yes, okay. Thank you for telling me. All right, so so let me show you this again. In sentiment analysis, what you're doing is you're taking text in and you're trying to determine the sentiment. In translation, you have language in English, and then you want to, for example, convert it into German. And then in this case, you might want, this is language summarization. This is analogous to what the New Yorker was doing. I'm going to just kind of skip this one. And then another area where natural language processing is being used is to automatically provide annotation on, captioning, captions on images. So in other words, give an image, produce a caption, and this is technology that is being used today. So natural language processing is being used in many fields, in many areas. It is believed that this is going to have an enormous impact on the world, for good and bad, actually, potentially. This technology is actually potentially quite dangerous. For example, I could take every article written about Hillary Clinton and convert it into a negative article about Hillary Clinton. Using that very same technology that did the New Yorker. And as many of you know, there were, people did that during the 2016 election on Facebook. And so, those, in the homework assignment, at the end of it, they talked about this. This technology is not good. It's not bad. It's how people use it. But there are a lot of ethical and societal things that will have to be grappled with. I was, listening to one of you earlier, and you talked about hearing about how you impacted a student, how what you taught impacted a student a decade or more down the road. And, one of the things as teachers, is teaching ethics. And our students, after they leave us, we would hope that there's a little something whispering in their ear when they're about ready to use the technology in ways that are unethical. And through our teaching, your teaching, they stop and do the right thing. Okay, so the question that I want to that I wanted to spend a few moments on with you is how can a machine, and when I say machine, I mean a computer, and just to be a little bit more specific, what's a computer? Machine learning is a computer, is software, which is a representation of an algorithm that is run on a computer. So when we talk about machine learning and we talk about AI, what we're really talking about is algorithms, methods. Those algorithms and methods are converted into software, and that software runs on a computer. Today, computers are iPhones. But in any case, that's what we're talking about. But the thing I want you to just ponder is, how can we take language, which is just letters and words, and how can a machine analyze that? How can it synthesize it? How can it produce text? Because those are not numbers, and computers work on numbers. Ones and zeros, bits, and through series of bits, we can produce numbers. And then those numbers are what computers are actually processing. But language is not numbers. So this is what I'm going to just briefly talk about was the key insight that is driving this technology. It's not obvious, although in retrospect, as we look at it, it seems obvious, maybe. But of course, everything is obvious in hindsight, particularly when it works. But when this was developed, it was not obvious, and it wasn't obvious that it would work. So what I want to do is just kind of give you some intuition. So let's look at a picture of the globe, okay? And the thing I want you to kind of think about is that if I looked at these 2 points in space, in the United States here, because those 2 points, this point and this point, are near each other, we would expect that life in those 2 parts of the world are pretty similar. People probably have the same history, same culture, by and large. They probably speak the same language. They're nearby each other. These 2 points, these 2 triangles, are also probably similar to each other, but are very different potentially from these points. These 2 points in Africa are probably pretty similar. The people who live there, the culture, the history, the climate, the geography, probably pretty similar, but far away from this and far away from that. And so the thing I want you to kind of think about is that when we look at the globe, a globe is kind of like a mapping of parts of the world. Parts of the world that are nearby are likely to be similar. parts of the world that are far apart are likely to be dissimilar. This is the basic intuition, not a very complicated thought. So now what we're going to do, this is the key insight for natural language processing with processing of language with the machine, is we're going to, now what you're looking at here is a mapping where a word, so I don't expect you to read this, but I will give you the slides. If you zoomed in, and I'm going to zoom in right here. So now I'm zooming in. Now you can see these are words: police, prison, suspect, arrest, etc. These are words, and these points are the locations of those words. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take all of the words in a vocabulary. We're going to take all the words in English, and we're going to map them to a point in two-dimensional space. And then the intuition is like this map of the globe. If two words are nearby each other in space, these two words should be related to each other. They should possibly be different ways of saying the same thing because they are similar. Two words that are far apart will be very different. And moreover, the relative placement of these words will basically capture a grammar. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take every word in our vocabulary, and in the English language, we're talking 20, 30,000 words, and we're going to map them to a point in two-dimensional space, just the same way as our globe. And that's what you see here. But of course, there's a lot of words, and so therefore it's really hard to read that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in on a neighborhood of that world. So that is the globe. It's the globe of words. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and look at a local neighborhood of that world. And I'm going to look at the words. And so this neighborhood corresponds to words that are related to crime or the law. Notice here that that point corresponds to attorney, to the word attorney. This point corresponds to the word lawyer. Attorney and lawyer are typically synonymous words, and they are, in this case, geographically nearby each other. But then notice that, judge, court, jury, trial, case, these are all words that correspond to the law. Witness, victim, death, suspect, arrest, murder, guilty. This is a local region of geography of words that corresponds to the law. The relative placement of these words characterizes the meaning of the words, the relative relationship between words, and grammar. And I'm going to talk about grammar in a moment. So the key idea of natural language processing that is doing everything that I talked about, translation, synthesis, summarization, sentiment analysis, all of these applications of natural language processing. The most fundamental thing that has to be done is that we're going to map every word to a point in space. And that relationship in space is going to capture the relationship of the words. Let me just, I see there are several questions, and I will get those questions and keep those questions coming. I'm going to answer them in a second. So now the thing I want you to notice, using our analogy, a point in space, geographical space in my globe, can be represented by a longitude and latitude. Where you are sitting right now, I could could provide the coordinates of that space by longitude and latitude. And so now what we're going to do with this mapping is every word is going to be put into a point in space. And then that point in space can be characterized by two numbers, longitude and latitude, using the analogy. And so therefore, we're going to map every word to two numbers, longitude and latitude. Those two numbers are going to put those words in space. So now, once we have done this, every word is converted to two numbers, longitude and latitude, which defines its location in space. Once I have that mapping from word to space, and that in position in space is characterized by two numbers, I have now done what I needed to do. I have converted words to numbers. Here, two numbers. Once I have words converted to numbers, I can now work on a computer because computers work in numbers. This is the key insight that is driving the revolution in natural language processing today. This is a new concept, actually. So there's several questions. So let me pause now and see if I can answer some of these. All right. Okay, so so the question, great question. Who decides the location of these words, right? So, if we zoom in on this local region of the topology of words, and we notice that attorney and lawyer are near each other, and prosecutor is typically a lawyer. So though it makes sense that those words are together. But the question is, who decides that? Who decides where these words are? And the answer is the computer, the machine decides. No human being decides, the machine decides. And so I'm going to talk about how the machine decides that, but that is what we mean by machine learning. So we have the term machine learning. What does that mean? So by the way, there's some really good questions, and I'm going to get to them. I'm reading, but I just want to talk about this a little bit. So I want to answer the question, or try to answer the question. Who decides where these longitude and latitude positions are for the words? And the answer is nobody decides. No human being decides. The machine decides. The computer decides. So how does the computer decide? So what we're going to do is through this process, we have constituted a mapping where every word is mapped to a point in two-dimensional space. And through that process, we have converted every word into two numbers, longitude and latitude. Now that we have represented the words in terms of numbers, we can try to make predictions. We can try to do things. We can try to do translation from English to German. We can do things like sentiment analysis. We can do things like synthesizing articles for the New Yorker. And so now we're going to measure how good we do that. We're going to measure how good do we do translation? How good do we synthesize? How good do we do sentiment analysis? And then what the machine is going to do is it is going to position the words in this two-dimensional space such that the accuracy with which it can do translation, with which it can do synthesis, with which it can do sentiment analysis is very, very good. And so the point is, this mapping of words to two-dimensional space is a concept. It's a concept that allows a machine, a computer, to analyze. But exactly where the words are mapped to in space will be decided upon based upon the accuracy of the model. And so the model it performs well. In other words, it produces accurate results when it thinks or when it understands that the words lawyer and attorney can be used interchangeably. When it understands that, it is good at language analysis. And so therefore it puts attorney and lawyer nearby each other. All right, so that answers, I tried to answer that question. Now, somebody asked a question, somebody asked a brilliant question. By the way, how much time? It was 15, it's probably less than 15 minutes now, right, Renee?
Yeah, you've got about 10 minutes.
All right, very good, thank you. So somebody asked a very, very good question. Words sometimes have multiple meanings. The same word depends upon the context. And so somebody was wise enough to recognize that if we're going to map words to locations in a two-dimensional space, and if that mapping to two-dimensional space is fixed, then that would imply that words only have one meaning, right? That was what prompted that question. And it is a fabulous question, and indeed, what I'm talking about here, this mapping, does not do what you said. In other words, that is indeed a limitation. However, I don't have enough time to talk about that. Maybe next time when we talk, I can talk about that. We have solved that problem, but it's not obvious that we have solved it here. Let me show you what else is implicit. So now let's map these words into a two-dimensional space. And then let's just look at what the algorithm, what the model figures out all by itself. So if we look at man, woman, uncle, aunt, king, queen, those are words. Those are just words of language. And we're going to map them to a two-dimensional space. Okay. So now, if we go back to our topological motivating example or perspective that I'm showing you here. So let's imagine that we are currently located at the position in this two-dimensional space for the word man. So we're now physically located in a town, the town of man. And now I want to take a trip to the town of woman. So now I'm going to move in space to the location of the word man, to the location of the word woman. I'm going to go a certain direction and I'm going to get to the word woman. But now I'm going to be sitting at another town called uncle. So now the word uncle is located somewhere in this topology. And now I'm going to move to the location of aunt, the word A-U-N-T. So really the only difference between the uncle and aunt is the gender. And the only difference between a man and woman in language is gender. And so the thing that I am trying to communicate through this diagram is that if you're at the physical location in the topology of man and you want to move to the location of woman, you move a certain direction. If I want to go from uncle to aunt, I move the same relative location. And from king to queen, the same relative location. So this is what we mean by learning by the algorithm learning the meaning of the words. Not only does it understand where to place them, which is representative of their relative meaning, but in addition to that, we learn the relationships between words, that man is related to woman as uncle is to aunt. And then here, king is to kings, singular plural, as queen is to queens. So in both cases, the distinction between this word and this word is simply singular versus plural. And so this is all uncovered by the model. And so another question you might be asking is, do we have to take this analogy literally? Are we really going to take every word and map it into a two-dimensional space, longitude and latitude? Now, the thing is that we could do that if we wanted to, but there's no reason why we have to restrict ourselves to 2 dimensions. We could do this in 3 dimensions, because actually the globe is 3-dimensional. Or, you know, this is just an analogy. Instead, what we can do is we can take every word in our vocabulary. This is the ith word in the vocabulary, and we can map it to m dimensions. So m, in my example, m was equal to 2, but now m could be much larger than 2. In practice on computers using modern techniques, m typically is 1024. So therefore, there are 1024 dimensions of words. Google has done this for every word in the English language, as well as in many other languages. And this is called in our field is called word to vec. And so so for some of you who teach math, you might have heard of the concept vector. A vector is a set of m numbers. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take every word and we're going to map it to an m-dimensional vector. This is called word to vec. Okay. So now in the last 2 or 3 minutes, let me just see if I have a question. Okay. Now the last thing though is, how do we actually learn these word to vec? So now I'm going to skip all of this. So this is a paragraph from Hemingway, and so this is some text from Hemingway. And what we do is the machine just reads documents. Now one thing that we have a lot of access to today is documents. Virtually every book that has ever been written in the English language is in digital form today, thanks to Google. The New York Times is digital, the Wall Street Journal is digital, everything, virtually every periodical is digital. We have a lot of documents. And so now what we can do is we can just let the machine read the documents. And so now in green, we have 3 words before game, and then we have 3 words after game. And so now what we're going to do, for example, is we will give the machine or give the algorithm or give the software 3 words before, 3 words after, and the objective is for the machine to predict the missing word. And we have massive quantities of data with which this can be done. And because we have, we have tremendous amount of data that is on the World Wide Web. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to use or develop a machine that will take there was much hanging outside the. This is a neural network, which I have not gone in any detail because I didn't want to bore you or bother you at this time with a lot of math. But then that neural network can predict the word that is missing here, game. And we're going to do this using a massive corpus of data. And then the mapping of words to vectors will be designed such that the machine does this very well. And so to come back to the question, how does a machine, who does the mapping of words to vectors? Well, no person does that. The machine does it. The way the machine does it is it reads, if you will, it reads a very large quantity of documents, and it does objectives such as predict the missing word. And then what we do is we build an algorithm such that it is very, very good at that task. And then implicitly, through that process, the machine learns the mapping of words to vector. And when you ask the question, who learns this mapping? Sorry. Who learns this mapping of words to vector? Nobody does. The machine does. How does the machine do it? It does it such that it's good at making predictions, such as predicting the missing word. Okay, so I'm just about out of time, and so I'm reading. Yes, the machine does this on virtually every piece of English text. Here, English, it could be in any language that has ever been written, including Ulysses, James Joyce's Ulysses, any language that you want. And so what the machine does is it essentially or literally reads all the digital documents it ever can get its hands on, and then it does tasks like what I'm sorry. Like this, predict the missing word. And it does that on massive, massive corpuses. And the only way that this can work is if this mapping of word to vec is good. And so then the machine figures out all on its own how to do that. And then through that process, it determines that words like lawyer and attorney are synonymous because those words are used essentially the same way in language. So I think I'm at time now. So obviously you're not going to now take this and go off and develop your own natural language processing algorithms. And that was, of course, not the objective. I wanted to give you just a flavor of how this works. So now just to kind of wrap up, why is there so much excitement today about AI? Well, one of the most human of things is writing. One of the deepest windows into the human mind is writing. We ask our students, for those of you who teach high school students who are getting ready to go to college, they have to write many of them have to write an essay for their college applications. That essay is supposed to really tell the university who this student is, who this person is. It's a very personal thing. We now have machines that can produce essays that are indistinguishable from those produced by humans. That is a stunning accomplishment. It has tremendous, tremendous implications. Can universities trust answers to essays in the future? Were they really written? There was always a question, was it how much did the parent participate in the writing of that essay? Now we have to ask the question, was it even a human being that produced that essay? right? And so that is a stunning accomplishment. That is why the New Yorker wrote an article about this. And then the other thing is, a picture. When you see a picture, so Joe committed a crime, and you, oh no, Joe, no way Joe could do that. Joe is so wonderful. No way Joe can do that. All right, here's a photograph of Joe stealing a wallet from Nancy. See that photograph? That's it. I mean, okay, he's guilty. A photograph, we take, that's evidence, because that's the definition of truth. Well, now we have machines that can produce images that are indistinguishable from those produced by a camera, and they're completely synthetic. So, for example, back to my Hillary Clinton, I can make her look any way I want. I can make her look happy. I can make her look mean. I can make her look angry. Well, if I don't like Hillary Clinton and I don't want her to win an election, I can put all kinds of photographs all over Facebook, making Hillary Clinton look like the meanest person in the world. And of course, people did that. So the capacity of machines to do this is stunning. This is technology that is only coming to maturity right now, still being developed. This is the state of the art. Tremendous opportunity for good, also tremendous danger as well. As you think about the students that you train, I don't think I have to tell this to you. You know it better than me. There'll be people as these students leave you and move on, and we'll teach them all the technical details of how to do machine learning. But by the time they arrive at college, they're pretty well formed. And I would say that your job is to make sure that these young people are instilled with the highest of character, highest of ethics, so that when they use this technology or other technology like this, or in anything that they do as they walk through life, is that they make good choices, ethical choices, and that they use this technology and other things well. So in any case, again, it has been an honor and a pleasure to speak to you. And I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. I hope you guys, I don't expect you to walk away from this and understand AI. Hopefully you have some sense now. And again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Larry.
Yes, indeed, Larry. Thank you very much. And we'll see you soon, right?
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, I think it's a week from, we're going to do it again next Friday.
That was
Yep.
very scary. I will have nightmares tonight, I think.
Yes. And Larry, I'll make sure to send you all of the chat questions, so that if there are questions in those that you'd like to address next time, you'll have them. Yeah,
very good. And also, if anybody has any additional questions, of course, I guess send them to Renee or something. So in any case, all right, well, have a good day, everybody. The rest of the day.
That sounds perfect.